Hello, everybody. I think we are in the breakout room for the Ways to Wellbeing. Now we are having, I'm Roberta Pirodi. I'm sort of like, I'm a researcher with ARC Northwest and with Health Inequality Research team at the University of Liverpool. And we are having a little bit of teething problems with this platform at the moment. So you needed to bear a little bit with us. But I think what we can do in the meantime is if my colleague Lauren can unmute herself if she's around, and sort of like
yes.
You're around, Lauren. Can you just, this is a session in which we need your help, you're in more than one way. And this is sort of like one of the ways in which you can help now is follow Lauren through this quiz about health inequalities. Please, Lauren, to you.
Hi, everyone. So I'll be the distraction whilst we deal with some issues. So I am a statistician. And I have just recently joined the IPH team in the last few weeks. So I've created a poll that I have put in the chat of this. So if you would do me a favour and click that. So I will share my screen. And then hopefully I was actually looking for, there we go. Right, people are starting to respond. Okay. I'm hoping you can all still hear me, otherwise I'm just talking to myself. So yes, the first question is, how many major welfare reforms were there in England between 2012 and 2019? So if you could all start voting for that, what you think. So we either have 2, 5, 10, 16 or 20.
Sorry, Lauren, I can't seem to find the poll bit.
Okay.
So
Which
there is
this then. I will put it in the chat, I think. Okay. Nope, that's the wrong one. I'm having to use separate Zoom, so I can't actually use the embedded Zoom in the meeting, so I'm having to use other Zoom, which is not great. Okay, so is that better?
I still can't
Anybody hear me?
I still can't see where the poll button is.
Don't you have to text?
Oh, you have to go to...
Text Lauren Barnett.
You can go to this website at the top of the screen. It might be better if you go to the website. So the very top of my screen, it has a pollev.com, so it should take you to a website that'll let you vote.
Okay, will do.
There's actually links underneath the introduction. The host Maverick have put the links there, so it says polling activity. Click here. I went in that way.
Okay. Because I've only got a few minutes, I will show you the correct answer. So all of the questions that you are going to be asked in the next 5 minutes will be covered in the presentations, which is why I'll just quickly go through the correct answer. So nobody got that one right. So yeah, the correct answer was 20. There have been 20 major welfare reforms in England between 2012 and 2019. There we go. Right, sorry, that would take a bit of a while. So the second question should be activated now, so you should see it on your screens or whatever you're using to actually fill this in. So in the northwest of England, what proportion of one? So 20%, 40%, 60%, or 80%? Okay, has everybody voted? Everybody that wants to vote or can vote? Okay, so the correct answer is, give me 2 seconds. Yes, I do apologise, my internet's not great. Yes, so the correct answer is D, 80%. Well done. The majority, like quite a lot of you got that one correct, so congratulations. So next question. What proportion of working age council tax support claimants are women in the Northwest? So A, 20%, B, 40%, 60%, or 80%? Okay, that's quite a good range of answers. Yes, well, half of you got that one correct. So the correct answer is 60% of council tax support claimants are women. Okay, so women do how much more unpaid work than men? 20%, 40%, 60%, or 80%? I have a feeling I know what the demographics of these voting was going to be. Okay, okay. So yes, the correct answer is 60%. Yeah, that's pretty predictable. Oh, next question, hopefully. Okay, so what population was more likely to be made redundant or furloughed during the COVID-19 pandemic, men or women? Is everybody just voting for women? Yep, okay. Yes, you are all correct. Women were more likely to be made redundant or furloughed during the COVID-19 pandemic, which is obviously still ongoing as of now. So I think the next question should be the final question. So which is the most common offence for I'll try that again. What is the most common offence for which women are prosecuted in the Northwest? Child neglect, shoplifting, or TV licence evasion? Okay, so the majority of you think it is shoplifting, but the correct answer is actually TV licence evasion. So yeah, as I said, I think that's the last question. So as yes, so the answers and all of the relevant information will be covered in the presentations that are just about to start. I'm not sure if we have fixed our our issues. Roberta?
Yes,
Roberta.
it's sort of like we have fixed hopefully, and sort of like so. Claire Money is a commissioner for the social model of health in Liverpool CCG, and together with Citizens Advice, they are providing this new service, which is called Ways to Wellbeing. And Claire is going to give us some background on this project now, hopefully.
Hi, we'll just make sure I'm on big screen. Hello, yes. Hi, everybody. And it was a bit of a scramble to get on, but we're here now. And pleased to be here. Can I just check that Debbie, oh, there's Debbie Nolan is on.
Justin.
Oh, great.
So,
I'm so happy.
Now, just before we start, I'm not sure if I can get my the presentation onto the screen because I've come in through Zoom rather than Attendify. So is anybody able to put that up for me?
So I can try to share my screen, and you needed to tell me. Let's see.
It's all right. Debbie's got it.
Okay,
Brilliant.
okay,
great.
That's great. That's great. So, so I'm going to talk for a few minutes. I mean, in terms of that, the quiz that Roberta and Lauren put together, that was just. I mean, even though I knew the answers, it's still a surprise. I still find it surprising to see that put down in black and white about the level of risk that there is among certain groups of women. And so Debbie and I are going to talk about a project called the Ways to Wellbeing, the Liverpool Ways to Wellbeing project, which is connected to a piece of research and evaluation that Roberta has been helping us with. And we've been funded by the Health Foundation. And there's some ARC funding going into it to explore issues relating to health inequalities, deprivation, and social prescribing. So to hang that together, I'm going to give a little bit of the background about why we started on this path and why we started exploring what is a clinical commissioning group doing, commissioning services from Citizens Advice, basically. So it's called the Ways to Wellbeing project, and it started in 2014 when levels of deprivation in Liverpool started to rise, and it became clear that the connection between mental distress and deprivation, that those two things went hand in hand. So we set up Citizens Advice. Deb, you can move on to the next slide. We tested out a project called Citizens Advice on Prescription, which was an early forerunner really of a social prescribing model. And it was made available to all GPs in Liverpool with a focus on income maximisation, debt and housing advice. and it also joined up with wellbeing services. So it was those two elements, really. We were trying to tackle risk factors relating to deprivation, mental distress and exclusion, and also ill health. And we linked the data a few years ago. We were able to link this data to through the DESCRO with data from primary care and also from hospitals, and we found that we were reaching at least 7,500 households a year, and we were reaching some of the people who were among some of the poorest in Liverpool, but also they generally had multiple long-term conditions. And when we looked at when we drilled down into the demographic behind that group, it was mainly single men aged 40 to 59 who were living alone in social housing, very low incomes, isolated, very isolated, and also middle-aged women who'd been affected by the bedroom tax and who were on 0 hours contracts. So mental ill health was a factor in nearly all of those presentations. So and Debbie could say more about these kind of things, and she will pick up these themes in her presentation. But these are the kind of issues that people were presenting with: eviction, possible eviction, fuel disconnection, changes to benefits suspension, job lost, high interest lending, complex debt issues, problems with budgeting, well, particularly obviously if you're on 0 hours contracts. So great, because we knew that we were some of the we were reaching some of the groups of people that we were interested in. But on reflection, when we started to dig into the data, we asked ourselves why we were not getting more referrals from mothers and children. And we felt that that was particularly important in a city like Liverpool, where child poverty rates, as we know, are high. And this next slide is from 2017 to 18, and you can see where Liverpool was then. We know that child poverty rates have increased. And we also know that that is important because it has such a huge impact on children's development. And this slide which is actually from 2017, but it does demonstrate that less able, richer children overtake more able, poorer children by the age of 6 in terms of educational outcomes. So we had, I suppose, inadvertently, or we had designed a way of working in partnership, or CAB had designed a way of working in partnership with health, which was successful in reaching some groups of people, but not others. So that's when we reflected on it and decided that we needed to adjust or test out other ways of working. So, and we decided that because of children and because of the additional risk that there is for mothers in terms of loss of employment or reduction in income related to work, that we should focus on the perinatal period. And at the end, I'll just say how we are approaching that in Liverpool. So I'm going to hand over now to Debbie, who's going to talk through going to start with telling us about a case study.
Hiya, so Debbie Nolan here. I'm the Health Programmes Manager for Citizens Advice Liverpool. Okay, so why are mothers so vulnerable? I'd like to give you a bit of a background here, because we work with so many GPs across Liverpool, and our service is a treatment option for GPs and trusted partners. And the more progressive GPs often ask, how can we screen for poverty or the wider determinants? What are the things we should be looking for? And often one of the responses is, if you see a young mother with young children, and I say she because 90% of lone parents are women, and she is not working, and she, very importantly, doesn't have a strong family or friendship network, then she should be referred to us for our support, because almost all lone parents, even if they are working, but they're in low paid or 0-hour contract work, they will need support in relation to some of the factors that I'll outline shortly. So to address the specific question, why are mothers so vulnerable? Well, pregnancy and maternity related discrimination is common. In 2016, we found that 41% of all mothers in work reported a risk or impact to their health and well-being, and 50% reported a negative impact on job security, and 11% felt forced to leave the job. So that's even where mothers are able to work and may have an infrastructure that a home that enables that. Once they leave the home, they're still encountering further barriers and problems. So I want to give you a case study that would be, there are so many case studies similar to this one that I often get confused, because the themes they recur month after month, year after year. But I'll take you through this very typical Liverpool-based case study now. So this is Lorna. She's a lone parent with 2 small children. She works part-time as a carer. Now, she was referred by her GP. She'd presented for the 3rd time that month. She said she needed more medication for her headaches and a sleeplessness. And fortunately for Lorna, she had a inquisitive and progressive GP who decided to unpack these requests. And what she found, what the GP found, was that Lorna was overwhelmed with distress and anxieties related to an eviction notice that was going to be heard in the court in 2 days' time. She was distraught. She thought she was going to lose her home, but she was afraid to ask for help because she thought that the condition she found herself in would reflect negatively on her ability to parent, and she thought there was even a possibility that she'd lose her children. That's a common theme when young mothers in low-income households get into trouble. She had rent arrears of £700. Now, I want you to hold on to that figure. It's a relatively small amount to most people, but to some people it's not, obviously. So the rent arrears were £700, and she'd been prioritising payday loans and bank overdrafts. So she didn't always have enough money to pay her rent in full. We were able to support Lorna quite substantially, and she's an ongoing client of ours. We help her with financial capability, budgeting, and we've helped her rationalise the debts. And of course, we attended the court, the local county court, to ward off the threat of eviction. But I can't stress enough how typical this case is. And it's because of obviously a whole set of circumstances, but almost always they pertain to lone parents with young children who are working typically part-time and find themselves in trouble because of low income and an inability to budget, and that often comes with a 0 hours contract where you don't know how much you're going to be earning that week or month. So within the Liverpool context, what we know is, and this is unique to Liverpool, there was Liverpool City Council did a cumulative impact assessment of welfare reforms for the previous 7 years. This was done in 2017, and there'd been a series of welfare reforms, and what the impact assessment found was that there had been a disproportional impact on women, and particularly women in low income households. And they were linked to council tax support. Most council tax support claimants are women. People affected by the under occupancy penalty were women, and the reduced benefit cap which affects lone parent families, 90% of which are women. So the whole series of welfare reforms mitigated against, particularly against women. Obviously, they had an impact on lots of disadvantaged people, but it was particularly poignant for low-income households. So I want to introduce a concept to you now of priority and non-priority debt. So hopefully you'll remember that the Lorna, the young woman in the case study, she had rent arrears of £700. So hold on to that. So some debts are more important to address than others because the consequences of not addressing them are more serious. By not paying some priority debts, you can lose your home, you could lose essential goods and services such as gas and electricity, and you can lose your liberty, you can go to prison. And these arrears, also, you know, one that I should have mentioned there, and it's really important, is parking fines. Anyway, because then we have rent arrears, mortgage arrears, council tax arrears, and magistrate court fines. If you don't pay these fines, the consequences are really dire, they're severe. So they're the priority debts. Non-priority debts are things like credit cards, unsecured loans, bank and building society loans and overdrafts, debts to your family and friends, payday loans and water rates. But typically, because they've got less power and less enforcement authorization, these are the creditors that bark the loudest. These are the ones that harass and harangue. The priority debts, they don't need to. You're going to court, they're going to fine you, they're going to put you in prison if you don't pay. But these are the ones that will shout the loudest. So where you have a small amount of priority debt, like Lorna did, like lots of people do, it's so important that you pay more attention to that than maybe the £60,000 debt you may have in credit cards. So lone parent households typically hold more priority debt. They're more likely to claim, women are more likely to claim council tax support. And if you don't pay these fines, you're more likely to be prosecuted. Sorry, you're more likely to be fined. And if you don't pay your fine, your goods can be seized. And for those of you unfamiliar with bailiff action, it's quite, it's traumatic. Your house is entered in a way that's a violation, and goods are seized, often to a greater value than what you owe the creditor. The majority of prosecutions for non-payment of TV licenses are women, 72%. It's the most common offence for which women are prosecuted. And that's an England figure, by the way. TV licence evasion accounts for 30% of all female prosecutions, compared to 4% of male. So, Claire, do you want to take over the perinatal expansion? I don't know if Claire can hear me.
Sorry, I'll just unmute.
Okay.
So thanks, Debbie. So you can see why we were concerned that we weren't reaching, or we didn't think we were reaching enough mothers through the existing model, and why we thought that we needed to adapt it. So earlier this year, we were awarded. We applied for and we were awarded some spreading improvement funding from the Health Foundation, which has 3 elements. One is allowed us to recruit 2 additional workers to work with health visitors and midwives during the perinatal period, so that we could support women with experiencing any kind of financial or social hardship at the very earliest point. And then the second thing that the funding was for is to allow us to evaluate this and the wider model using the linked data set, but also pulling in qualitative data from the sector itself. So one of the questions that we're interested in is, you know, how do health services, how do we adapt in order to, how should we adapt? What's the most efficient way for us to adapt in order to reach people who are furthest away from services. So the workers, the citizens advice workers, or the Ways to Wellbeing workers, started at the beginning of January in their induction period now, meeting health visitors, midwives, and particularly staff from neonatal units, because we know that prematurity is also associated, higher levels of prematurity are associated also with deprivation. So it felt important to link there. And the idea is that all health visitors and midwives in Liverpool will have rapid access to a referral into citizens advice, and that one of the quality assurance issues is a response within 2 working days. We're hoping that we can support, and that we've got capacity to support 1,000 women and their babies a year, and that this service also acts as a stepping stone into family wellbeing support. We feel really lucky that we will have a researcher in partnership with the University of Liverpool to evaluate the effectiveness and to help us kind of document and understand the journey that we're going through. And we've also built in an experimentation element to it. So this is not in any sense to say that we know how best to use this resource, but we want to give ourselves permission really to try things out in order to arrive at the best way of working. And I think because many of the systems that we're working with are complex, that is it's unlikely that we will ever arrive at a point where, you know, the service is fixed in a particular way. I personally think it will always need to learn and adapt depending on the context that it's working in order to reach the women that we're most concerned about. So
okay. So now we sort of like we ask our audience to do a little bit of work, and if I can, let's see if I can share my screen here. And this is the way in which we have conceptualized, we have thought that this extension will work. So it's sort of like here on the left you see the components of the service. So the citizens advice, relationship manager contacts frontline staff and gives training and support to identify people that may be at risk of financial or social hardship. Within 48 hours, a link worker contacts the person who has been referred, and a tailored plan of support will be developed. It involve financial advice, welfare benefits advice, help with housing difficulties, debt, relationship breakdown, bereavement, domestic abuse, social isolation, fuel poverty, anything like that. And we think that the relationship that is established both with citizens advice and the frontline services, and then citizens advice worker with a person referred, is very important, and it will help break down some more external barriers to well-being and appreciation of all the activities that make for a fuller life, and also break the internal barriers to it, as having beneficial psychological effects. Now, here you see in this graph, we have in our hypothesis of how this intervention will work, we think that there are 4 interlinked mechanisms that will help this intervention have beneficial effects. And sort of like, and they are listed here, is sort of we think that it's sort of like it will lead to reduced psychological distress, will have a sort of like improved material benefits, an increase in outcome, household income, with also a help with improved health behaviors, and this will lead to health improvement. What we would like you to do is now sort of like you find that you help us refining this model, sort of like digging through your experience of services that you may have found, social services, or your personal experience or idea. Can you just go to the link that at the bottom of this video, when you you find a Jamboard, like where you can add the sticky notes. Can you help us identify which are the components that are more important you think we should focus on in terms of barriers to access of things that actually help improve the power of this intervention? Can you help us highlight the different maybe mechanisms that we have forgotten, and which health outcomes should we focus on? You can either use the Jamboard here, provided in the link. You can unmute yourself, or you can just post your answers in the chat, please. And let's see, can anybody have can anybody access the Jamboard? I posted a link which I can post again. You can also just like unmute yourself, and we will try to add your notes. And this is, I see some people are joining in. Please, you find the sticky notes on the left hand side. If you press to the sticky note, if I just can't share my screen, maybe. I can see. So it's like you can go through the add a sticky note and this is health outcome. For example, should we consider what kind of health outcomes? Increase in referrals to talking therapists. Would it be a good idea? Or do you see like where some components have more effect than others?
Roberta, I've tried using that link. It's Risha, so sorry, but it just takes me to a blank whiteboard. It doesn't actually have the.
Oh, it doesn't. I like
the format.
Can see it. All right. Let's see. I don't know. Like it works for me. Let me see if I just click from this. Has anybody else need to look at, somebody said need to look at loneliness. Can anybody that has been successful can give me some? You can also put your comments on the chat. Antenatal and postnatal groups. Yeah. Can you put your comments on the chat? Intergenerational work. Increase in referrals to, for example, online social support. So, does anybody want to unmute themselves like and
I think it's a good activity. I'm busy thinking, and there seems to be lots of people posting notes. So it's I mean, personally, it looks like a really useful exercise, Roberta.
And yeah, anybody that wanted to like to say something about also you don't need to access the Jamboard. As a sort of like, I think Ollie said, there's sort of like there are 2 pages in the Jamboard. So just to sort of like have a look at the first page, perhaps, is the one. If you are missing appointment, yeah, that's a good idea. Having a look. For example, yes.
I can't access the Jamboard. I can't
Can
access
you tell
anything.
me? Yeah, can you tell me what you would like to say?
Yeah. Okay.
I will add.
Okay. I think one barrier that is a difficult one to overcome are people who have so little trust of services and institutions, and for whatever reason, there can be multiple reasons for that. And I think getting access for those people to services is extremely difficult. And those fears, I think the only way to actually get into that is through making links with people within neighbourhoods who are trusted and respected, everyday ordinary people, to work with others. I'm just thinking about the community where I live. I'm in East Lancashire, and the estate that's just across the road over there, there are many people who will not approach services. Some who won't even go for maternity services until it's the very last minute. And there are people that live on that estate, usually older women, who are trusted and respected. And accessing those people to act on behalf of the services to introduce a feeling of safety. I don't know, I'm a bit fuzzy with it, but I do know that these people are not accessed.
I think it's sort of like that's a really important point, and it's sort of like it just sort of like it touches into sort of like a kind of personal relationship that is sort of like it needs to happen between and also there's a sort of like it's a psychological dimension. It's sort of like of the people that are living in condition of hardship. That's a really important point.
Yeah, I think it's cultural as well. I mean,
yeah,
I know one family, for example, who the mother's a single mother. She has 2 children, both who now are grown up, both who also have children. She has imbued in them a distrust of all health services. Even dentists, they won't go to a dentist, they won't access things like vaccination. The daughter, when she was having the baby, wouldn't go to maternity services. I mean, really embedded. And the person that helped the daughter and got her to be seen by a midwife was actually just an older woman that lived on the estate. So there's some issue there, and I think there are examples of that all over the country.
Yeah, I think Hilary, I think I'm mindful, and actually everybody, I think sort of like our session is finished.
Sorry.
I think no, but Hilary, I was thinking, would you like if it's sort of like sharing your experience? Actually, I'm sure that Debbie and Claire and everybody sort of, we are organizing some stakeholders workshops, and it's sort of like these are very important points. And it's sort of like do you mind if we contact you and we can sort of like agree to? Yeah, that would be fantastic. Thanks a lot.
That would be great. Yeah.
I think everybody, I don't know, sort of like, I thought it was automatic, but I think that we need to leave this session and rejoin the summary of the talks for the other session. If Lauren is around, maybe I don't think Lauren is around. I think that everybody has logged off. So it's sort of like see you in the plenary with Ben. Take care.
Bye, Roberta.